Hello all, I'm sorry I can't do this live, but technology has temporarily beaten me on this occasion. However, I will be watching along with the rest of you and happy to answer questions by YouTube chat or Twitter afterwards. My paper combines two of my interests. Academically, my focus is on Shakespeare, but that's not the only sort of drama I'm interested in. Like millions of others, I have a soft spot for a bit of detective TV. In particular, I love the British show Endeavour, Italy's Inspector Montalbano and the Canadian Murdoch mysteries. Now, while watching, I've often found my favourite character is the pathologist, and so when I was studying Shakespeare's early Henry VI plays, one particular scene stood out. The Duke of Gloucester has apparently died in his bed. Enter Warwick, examining the body. See how the blood is settled in his face. His face is black and full of blood, his eyeballs further out than when he lived, staring full ghastly like a strangled man, his hair upreared, his nostrils stretched with struggling, his hands abroad displayed as one that grasped and tugged for life and was by strength subdued. And reading this, I couldn't help but think of all those mangled bodies examined by our 21st century television pathologists. The scene comes in the middle of Henry VI Part 2. The audience knows that the Duke of Suffolk, along with Queen Margaret, Cardinal Beaufort and the Duke of York, have conspired to cause Gloucester's death, although King Henry is unaware. When Warwick enters, the King says of Gloucester, "That he is dead, good Warwick, 'tis true, but how he died God knows, not Henry." It's not until Warwick examines the Duke's body that murder is confirmed. Warwick goes on to describe the way Gloucester's hair sticks to the sheets and how his beard is rough and rugged. He ends by stating, "It cannot be but he was murdered here. The least of all these signs were probable." What makes this unusual is not the vivid description of the corpse, but the fact that Warwick both describes and analyses what he sees, reaching a conclusion about the manner of death. Gloucester did not die in his sleep. It's a scene that's received little academic attention, although Claire Saunders, in her article Dead in His Bed, does describe Warwick as a stage presenter of this scene, suggesting his speech acts as a sort of camera close-up and is gruesomely effective. These words do seem to fit perfectly with the way modern television drama uses a pathologist to outline the cause of death and get it to lodge in the audience's memory. Killings in early modern drama are commonplace, but a murder that appears on the surface to be natural causes is unusual. Take the anonymous Ardham of Faversham, another play from the late 1580s or early 1590s. It centres on a plot to murder the title character, but there is no cover-up. When the murderers are found out, the body is smeared in blood and filthy gore. Though the corpse has been hidden, there's been no attempt to mask his injuries. One play from this period which does differ, though, is another anonymous work, Woodstock. It too sees a title character murdered towards the end of the play. Here's the first murderer telling his accomplice what to do. "Bring in the feather bed and roll him up in that till he be smothered and stifled, and life and soul pressed out together. Pull off the bed now, smooth down his hair and beard, close his eyes and set his neck right. Why so, all fine and cleanly. Who can say that this man was murdered now?" The two killers are then promptly done to death for their efforts, and the man who commissioned them to carry out the crime tells the audience, "Now who but we can make report of Woodstock's tragedy? Only he died a natural death." Unfortunately, the end of this play is missing, so we don't know if he was ever found out, although it does seem unlikely, especially as the murder has been commissioned by the King. And without a Warwick figure to examine the body, there is no one to uncover the crime. Warwick's ability to not only observe but deduce from his observations is rare in fiction for many centuries. It doesn't seem to be until the advent of the modern detective stories that the evidence from the body of the victim is used, and even that doesn't happen immediately. Edgar Allan Poe is commonly regarded as the father of the genre, but Poe's stories are centred on the detection of the person responsible. There's no doubt that a murder has been committed. Take this grisly scene from his story The Murders in the Rue Morgue. On a chair lay a razor, besmeared with blood. On the hearth were 2 or 3 long and thick tresses of grey human hair, also dabbled with blood, and seeming to have been pulled out by the roots. A search was made of the chimney, and, horrible to relate, the corpse of the daughter, head downward, was dragged therefrom. Poe's detective Dupin analyses the facts of the case to get to the truth, but he's presented with an obvious crime scene. Moving forward a little, Agatha Christie, who published her first detective novel in the 1920s, is well known for her use of poisons, and in some cases these victims are initially mistaken for cases of death by natural causes. Detection requires a pathologist. But this is more about testing samples in a lab than observing the state of a victim. As Wendy Aaron-Casper comments, it's not until later in the 20th century that the forensic pathologist becomes a character in their own right. This has particularly been the case on television. Sue Turnbull has suggested that the forensic scientist is presented as the empathetic champion of the voiceless victim. The pathologists in the dramas I mentioned at the start all fit that description. These characters are usually on the edge of the action. We're not talking Quincy or Silent Witness here, we're talking about police-led dramas where pathologists play a supporting role and often inhabit separate worlds to the rest of the characters. Their domain is the hospital or laboratory. Another parallel can be drawn here with Warwick. He's not a central figure in either Henry's court or the group of conspirators. Warwick might not have his own independent space, but he is still portrayed in this scene as someone separate from all the main characters. Now, probably my favourite TV pathologist is Dr. Max de Bryn in Endeavour, played by James Bradshaw. He has a particular knack for getting to the truth behind deaths that appear to be other than they actually are. Take the episode Canticle. De Bryn reveals that what appears to be murder by strangulation is in fact a murder by other means or by an accident. His initial assessment suggests one thing: strangled with a ligature about the thickness of my finger. Sash cord, perhaps? He's as I found him, but post-mortem lividity says he died on his front. He rolls the victim over, revealing a cross-shaped white mark on a purplish patch on the man's body. Post-mortem lividity is the settling of blood under the influence of gravity after death. It could explain the cause of Gloucester's face being black and full of blood. He died face down and then been rolled onto his back later. Although if you want more on the possible causes of Gloucester's death, Catherine Harkup has just published her book Death by Shakespeare, which does look in detail at how he might have died. Now back to Endeavour. Dr. de Bryn's assessment gives a vital clue to the movement of the body, and after the full post-mortem examination he revises the cause of death. Oh, he was strangled, yes, several times, only that's not what killed him. It wasn't asphyxia. His heart gave out. The strangulation occurred peri-mortem, on or about the moment of death. He was already dying. In modern television detective drama, pathologists like this exhibit expertise, knowledge and skills that none of the other leading characters possess. Consequently, they take control of the story, dominating the scenes in which they feature and temporarily being more important than the central character. Their actions also empower the protagonist to lead the rest of the narrative. In Shakespeare's play, Warwick's analysis of Gloucester's body and subsequent accusation of those he believes to have been involved in the murder becomes the final straw, maybe the final excuse, for the Commons to rise up and rebel. Salisbury says, "Dread Lord, the Commons send you word by me, unless Lord Suffolk straight be done to death or banished fair England's territories, they will by violence tear him from your palace and torture him with grievous lingering death." From here on, the play is dominated by the Jack Cade Rebellion and the rise of York. While these events would have happened anyway, as York has outlined in the scene before, Shakespeare makes the death of Gloucester a pivotal moment in the plot, accelerating the action. In Henry VI Part 2, Warwick fulfills a role akin to that of a 21st century television pathologist. He studies the body of Gloucester and, using his experience and powers of observation, establishes the death is not natural. He has expert knowledge beyond that of the other characters, and he's able to apply his knowledge to inform the protagonists and push the story forward. The description of Gloucester's body is unlike any other in literature at the time or for centuries to come. While the play is far from a whodunit or a detective drama, Warwick's role in this key scene argues strongly for him being fiction's first pathologist. Thank you.